What's going on, everybody? This is your tour guide around the SWAC C Wells coming at you with another video today. Y'all make sure y'all lock in with us. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and become a part of the SWAC Talk family by becoming a member. 99 cents gets you a membership to the YouTube channel. We have special perks coming at you. We're going to be dropping special members only videos and shorts. I'm going to have rants and reactions to different things that I want to put there. So if you want to get everything, man, become a member of the Swag Talk crew for 99 cents and get down with the get down, man. And so we're going to still be bringing y'all a lot of stuff, swag smoke and everything like that, and all our normal videos. But we also bring y'all that membership tier. So get down with that. Check out the Facebook and Instagram, both Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. And now let's get on with the show, man. Let's do it.
Yo, SWAC talk. Light on the mic, it's a play. See Wells the guy taking us state to state. Catch us Wednesday, Sunday, stats on the buffet. From Gridiron to the court, we got the say. Football spirals, hoop dreams in the chat. Chopping it up, deep dives on every stat. Texas to Florida, repping border to border. Arkansas to Bama, the vibe getting warmer. SWAC talk, keep the knowledge on deck. See Wells spinning wisdom, gotta show respect. Facts flying higher than a wide receiver's check. From football to hoops, what y'all expect? Guests roll through, dropping stories untold. Legends from the SWAC, spitting straight gold. Locker room vibe, secrets unfold. CW heavy like a championship hold. The South's got a rhythm, a culture to match. Each stat, each fact, another door latch. SWAC talk connects like a perfect pass catch. From Alabama skies to Florida's grass patch. SWAC talk, keep the energy alive. Wednesday to Sunday, where the legends thrive. Facts and stats sharper than a coach's knife. Ballin' on the mic, that's how we survive. Keep the energy alive. Wednesday to Sunday where the legends thrive. Facts and stats sharper than a coach's knife. Ballin' on the mic, that's how we survive. That's how we survive. Survive. That's how we survive. That's how we survive. That's how we survive.
All right, everybody, what is going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk. The show we cover the swag inside and out. Excuse me. Of course, I am your tour guide around the SWAC C Wells coming at you. And today we're gonna take a look at the coaches tier list that I put together. I mean, we're gonna kind of look at how I rank the coaches for the 2025 season, and we're not gonna do a 1 through 12. We're gonna do it in tiers: D tier, C tier, B tier, A tier, and we're gonna slide everybody like that. I was gonna, not rank the incoming coaches with them, but everybody's, there's so many coaches who are like still relatively new that, hey, why not just put the new guys in where I think they fit. Of course, there will probably be one who, may be a little controversial, but when you look at certain things, it does fit to me. So we're gonna kind of go through this. I put together a little chart and we're gonna work our way through the chart. We're gonna start at the D tier and make our way to the A tier, and I'll explain why I think every coach is where they should be. And this is one of those seasons that it really isn't that hard to figure out because there's so many coaches who are new still that there's not a lot of a track record for guys. So you kind of go off of what they've done before. Um, and bleed a little bit into what you expect from them this season. But we're gonna go ahead and jump into this, man. We're not gonna waste no time with this. And here is the chart I put together. It's pretty crude, but we put it together, make it work. Um, we'll start off with the D tier, and two of the three coaches on the in the D tier are coaches who I feel may be battling for jobs. So we'll start with Bethune-Cookman and Coach Raymond Woody Jr. He started his position in 2023. He is 5-18 in his time at Bethune-Cookman, so definitely not a great record. 5-18 overall, 4-12 in conference. 2023 he went 3-8 and 2-6. Last season he went 2-10 and 2-6, both times finishing in fifth place in the East Division. And it really doesn't look like there's going to be that much of a difference. I do think out of the coaches who are on this on this D tier, um, his team might be a little bit more ahead of everybody else. I think out of the three teams, Bethune Cookman was one of those teams that kind of had opportunities to pull off an upset or two here or there. Last season, they definitely were more competitive in a lot of games than the other two teams. Not necessarily saying that they were better, but they kind of found their way in those kind of situations. Where they didn't necessarily get blown out a whole lot. So I think out of the three teams, probably in the best position out of the three teams in the D tier. Also in the D tier is Alonzo Hampton from Pine Bluff. He also is 5-18 over his time at Pine Bluff. Started in 2023, went 2-9 and 1-7 in conference. Did improve his record to 3-9 and 2-6 in conference. So it took a little slight bump. Had some bumps in the road. With some things that he said and felt during the season. But this team got decimated in the portal, so I don't know if this team is even, anywhere near competitive as they probably should be moving forward. They're losing basically almost everybody who is a key contributor, except for like a couple of running backs. They're losing a lot of their key guys. They're losing, the top wide receiver who was an all conference guy, and they're losing the starting quarterback. Defense got ravaged by the portal. So I don't know if they did enough to replace it. And I think out of all the teams in the West, they are at the bottom. Last season they finished top of fifth, and the season before they were sixth. So I don't know if there's going to be any improvement for them. Um, and the fact that they've been, all three seasons basically they've been kind of in rebuild mode, getting ravaged by the portal and trying to add guys. And every now and then they get a guy, but they can't keep him. And that's some of that is the nature of the beast. I don't really hold that against them per se because that's the way it goes now. Guys, have a little success and they're ready to dip up out of there and try to see where they can land. So I don't really hold that completely against him. But when you get hit like that every year and what you're replacing is not necessarily as good as what you lost, and you're doing it all the time, it makes you basically be in a permanent rebuild. And when you're in a permanent rebuild, you're never gonna get ahead. So that's basically why I have them in the D tier. And like I said, I think him and Coach Woody are coaching for their job. Now that's an outside perspective. Inside those programs, it might not be that way. But just looking at it from outside looking in, um, that's where I stand. Rounding out the D tier, and this is a brand new coach. Um, no, a brand new coach, new to everything in terms of head coaching. Um, did head coach one season in the XFL in Orlando, went 1-9, but his first year as a college head coach, and that's Terrell Buckley at Mississippi Valley. Um, Valley's a team who who hasn't really had, put it lightly, hasn't really had much success. And so, this is a new coach coming in, and there's a lot of unknown around this team. Like, I don't know a lot about what's going on right now with them. I don't really feel like there's a huge buzz outside of, the immediate area. I could be wrong, but I know when Coach Wade took over, there was some heavy buzz. And so there's not that, which, hey, they had heavy buzz the previous couple of years and didn't win but 2 or 3 games in that time span. So maybe that you don't need the buzz. But it was tough to put Coach Buckley anywhere but here, and it is more so because of what he's starting with and the unknowns. Than it is an indication of his job, because we don't know how he's gonna turn out. So I'm not putting him here because I think he sucks or anything. I'm putting him here because don't know really, where the heck to put him. So, I don't think it's fair to put him anywhere else but there, because the team is in a total rebuild. He's in a first year as a college head coach. So it's just a lot of up and down. So we don't really have a clue of where this guy should go, but this is where we will put him in the D tier. So that rounds out our D tier. That takes us to our C tier, and we'll start off with the new coach in this group, and that's Sam Shade, coming over to Alabama and them from Miles. He's only here because he's new, and he had a really solid stint at Miles. So he's definitely coming with some success under his belt. Um, in his time at Miles, he was 18-15, 15-8 in conference in the SIAC. Actually won the conference last season and went to the second round of playoffs, where he ironically lost to Coach Tremaine Jackson in Valdosta State. So he had a really good year at Miles, and actually his record improved in his 3 years at Miles. He went 1-9 his first year, 1-6 in conference. In 2023, he went 7-3, 6-2 in conference, and then this past season, 10-3 and 8-0 in conference. So he definitely got better in his time there. So um, I think being put here is a solid thing, and if he can kind of build this program, which I don't think A&M is that in need of being built. I think they just need to be sustained and kind of grow with it. But I don't think they're at the ground floor. I think they already got foundation and some walls up. I think they just have to continue to build a house more so than building it from scratch. It's already up. You just got to start putting the sheetrock in and all that kind of stuff. So I think they are in a decent position. I think he's a good guy for the job. Like I said, he's coming in with a solid record. He's won the conference that he was in, went to the playoffs, won a playoff game. So I think this is a good hire. Not flashy, but definitely solid. And I think gonna bring some more intensity on the defensive side of the ball, especially for the Bulldogs, as they kind of move forward in the post Connell Maynard era. So, like I said, that's an argument could probably be made for him to be moved up because of the success he had at Miles. But I think this is a solid starting spot for him. And there's not like a tidal wave of buzz around him. And that's not a negative on him. That's just that's kind of what it is. So I think the C tier is great for him to start, and he'll most likely finish above this tier as long as he does what I expect him to do. Next up in the C tier is Cedric Thomas. Last year was his first year at Alcorn. Went 6-6, 5-3 in conference. Was only a couple games away from making the SWAC championship game, but um, ultimately came up short. Had a rough start offensively. the past season, but it kind of got better as they kind of determined what they wanted to be. This season, there's some more expectation as usual with Alcorn. I like Coach Thomas. I think he's a solid guy. He is 14-20 in his career as a head coach. Um, on the D1 level, um, 5-3 in his time at Alcorn in the conference, 6-6 overall. 8-14 at Pine Bluff, and 4-10 in conference, giving him a 9-13 mark in conference in his 2 years there, and like I said, 14-20 overall. His first year at Pine Bluff, he went 2-9 and 1-6, finished tied for fourth in the West. In 2019, they went 6-5 and 3-4 in conference, and finished fourth in the West. And I really think that 19 team under Coach Thomas was the foundation for that spring 21 team that went to the SWAC championship game. Went to the SWAC championship game, and then even though they weren't that great in the fall of 2021, they still had a lot of those pieces. And a lot of that was because of the job that he did bringing in guys. So he had helped lay that foundation, but they ultimately couldn't sustain it. As he left Pine Bluff in 2020 to go to Southern Miss, before he took over for 1 year at Mississippi Delta, where he went 5-4 and 3-3 in conference. So has a 19 and 24 record, um, just in his coaching career as a head coach, um, with a 12-16 record in conference. So definitely definitely a guy who I think is gonna always run a disciplined team. They're gonna play defense. They're gonna run the ball, and they're never really gonna make a ton of mistakes, and hurt themselves. And so I think Alcorn is gonna continue to be in the mix. Again, this is not necessarily a flashy team, but I think they're definitely one of those teams that can hurt you if you're not careful. So I think Coach Thomas was the right guy for the job at Alcorn, and I think he's going to continue to get better in his time there. The next coach that we have in the C tier is another coach who was in his first year last season, and this was his first head coaching job, and that's Chris Dishman at Texas Southern. This is his first head coaching job um, in his career. Had a surprising finish for TSU and finished third in the West at 4-4, went 5-6 overall. So 5-6 and 4-4 in his first year. Um, and they battled a lot with injuries, and an offense that really did not have much of a passing game. But they played solid defense. Again, they kind of held their own for stretches of the game, and they ran the ball and they played physical, but they couldn't really pass the ball much to really win games. But they finished a lot stronger than a lot of people thought, including myself. This was a team who most people picked to finish below Pine Bluff. So to finish third is a huge jump. And so they are in that mix of teams that I think can finish anywhere in the West Division. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe garner a couple first place votes. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if somebody felt that way. I do think they're probably going to be a team who is in that second, third, or fourth spot, depending on how some things shake out. They still got, they got a few questions to still answer, but I think Coach Dishman did a solid job, with the team. And, like I said, they didn't necessarily have an explosive offense. And they didn't necessarily have, just this world beater defense, but they did enough in all games to win and put themselves in position to win. And that's really all that you can ask for any coach. So that's why he is in the C tier. Um, Next up in the C tier is James Colsey from Florida A&M. And this is a guy who, if it wasn't for two games toward the end point of the season, he would probably have been in the B tier. Finished 7-5 in his first year at FAMU. This is his first coaching job on a D1 level. Finished 7-5 and 5-3. Surprising loss to Prairie View. Followed that up with a horrific loss to Valley. And this team would have finished 7-1 instead of 5-3 and won 9 games. So they were they started off a little rocky last season. Of course, you lost so many guys from the previous year, but you started putting some things together around the midpoint of the season. Defense started getting on track, and then, like I said, those two rough games that just kind of derailed the season. Now they did finish strong, winning their last couple games after they made some changes, but I think that's that was a good rebound at the end of the season because with those couple losses, if you drop another one of them games, even with the team that they had, that you would have ended up in the D tier. And really, you probably could still say that, but I still feel like before and after that 2 game stretch, the team was moving in the right direction. And they found something with their run game in the last couple of weeks of the season. And they just, if maybe they did that earlier, they wouldn't have been in this position. But they recruit well. Again, this season they've been, reliant on the portal and bringing in a lot of guys that can contribute. And they still are a team who can be considered to be in the mix in the East Division. So even through everything, they still finished tied for second in the division. So not necessarily a horrific season. It's just who you lost to more so than the losses themselves. And the Prairie View loss wasn't necessarily as bad as the Valley loss. Um, Saying the Prairie View loss was really bad is kind of an insult to Prairie View. I don't think they were a team they weren't great, but I don't think they were bad either. And it was a road game, so quarterback got banged up. But losing the Valley at home is honestly inexcusable, and so that alone could get you put on that tier if your team didn't find their way back up. And so they did, and that's why they're on the C tier. And again, this is another team who, with a few more solid outings can be a B tier ranking at the end of the season. So we won't count out Coach Cozy. I think he has the opportunity to kind of turn some heads and get some things right from the past season. So that's why he is sitting here on the C tier. And rounding out our C tier is Mickey Joseph from Grambling. And some people might say this guy should have been on the D tier, and I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think the team had some, they had some issues coming in with new guys all over, and basically a new coaching staff. Um, just I think a lot of things just didn't gel for them last season. Injuries, um, offensive issues with the offensive coordinator, and just not really maybe being what Coach Joseph wanted that team to be. They still played a ton of one-score games last season. It came up short in a few of them, but that's the difference between being 5-7 and 2-6 in conference, and maybe being 4-4 and 6-6 in conference or something like that. So they did a good job of forcing turnovers on defense, but offensively they just kind of got stagnant toward the end of the season as teams kind of figured out what they wanted to do offensively. Um, he does have an overall record of where is it? Get his numbers right. He does have an overall record of 21-20 as a head coach, over 500, and then 5-7 at Grambling. In his coaching career, he started off at Langston. He was 7-3 in his first year there, 4-1 in conference, tied for first in the conference. In 2012, he went 6-4, and then as an independent, Langston was independent that year. 2022, he took over for Nebraska coach. Nebraska coached the last 9 games of the season, went 3-6 and 3-5 in the Big 12 and the Big 10, finishing sixth in the West. And then in his first season at Grambling, he was 2-6 in conference, tied for fifth, 5-7. And again, like I said, the defense played well enough to win in a lot of games. Offensively, they just really couldn't get a lot of things going. and they lost. They lost. I think they lost a close game to Texas Southern. They lost a close game to Bethune-Cookman, and they lost a close game to Alabama A&M. They lost close to Alcorn. They had a ton of close losses. They lost a 5 overtime game to Prairie View. Um, and even though they lost to Southern by 10, they were in that game for the bulk of the game because their defense and special teams kept them in it. They just did not necessarily have the offensive firepower um, and consistency, especially with injuries at quarterback, to really keep themselves going. But this is another coach who I think recruits really well. And so if he can continue to build his team and they can get that offense on track, they're gonna be in for an improved season from last season, and they improve. Maybe they jump up a tier if something else happens above them. So I think they're moving in the right direction. Some of the additions they made, I like a lot, and so we'll see how things turn out for them moving forward. Next up is the B tier, and we have three coaches in the B tier as we round out this list. We'll start off with the guy who I didn't know what to do at first because I didn't really want to put a new coach in this list. And that's really why I did it as a tier instead of a 1 through 12 ranking, because I didn't want to put a number to this guy. But Coach Tremaine Jackson has come in and really changed a lot of things. I saw somebody call him call him Suge Knight of the SWAC. And so, I think he's come in with great energy, and, Prairie View and the fans are buying it. I think a lot of people on the outside are kind of side eyeing it, but I think he's coming in with a lot of bravado, and I think he's standing on what he's saying. And like I said, we've had the opportunity to have him on the show, so I like his energy, and I'm looking forward to seeing him do well in 10 out of in what 11 out of the 12 games. But I think he has a track record of winning, and that's the main reason why he's here. Um, when you look at his career, he started off at Colorado Mesa. He went 2-1 in his first year in the 2021 season. I guess it was the spring, and then in the fall of 2021, went 8-2 and 7-2. Finished third in his conference. Then ended up getting a job at Valdosta State in 2022. Went 5-6 his first year, 2-5. Finished tied for seventh, and then he won. Then he won the conference. The next 2 years, he tied for first in 2023, going 12-2. 7-1 over in conference, tied for first. Lost in the quarterfinals of D2. Had a number 8 ranking and a number 9 ranking, and then in the next season he lost in the D2 championship, going 13-1 at Valdosta State and 6-0 in conference, and won the conference. It finished second. Finished second after losing in the championship, and that gives him an overall record of 30 and gives him an overall record of 40-12 and 22-8 in conference. So very good, obviously very good marks, and definitely coming with a winning track record. Um, you really can't, you really can't ask for much more than that for a new coach coming in, and his energy is high, and they're really believing in everything he's saying, and there's a lot of buzz around the Panthers that I haven't really seen from them, honestly, in my whole life. Um, Even in the years that they were top front runners in the conference, I don't think they had this kind of buzz behind them. Obviously, some people are looking for them to fall because of this, but some people are rocking with it because of this, and that alone gets him in this spot, and the fact that he does have a winning track record. He has he basically has the highest winning percentage of any coach overall. Any coach. Let me see how I put it. He has the highest career winning percentage of any coach in the conference, 769. So he does know how to win, and he's won in both places he's been. And I don't think anything's going to be different here. May not happen as fast as some people think it could, but it may not. But I still think he's going to have his team as a player for a long time, and I think they're going to have to make sure that at some point they continuously commit and be fully committed to the program, because there's going to be some eyes and hands trying to reach out for him in the future. So it was easy to put him in the B tier. And if I was doing a 1 through 12, I wouldn't know really where to put him. But I think the B tier is a very solid spot for him, and honestly, I think he deserves it. Next up is Terrence Graves from Southern. Um, Took over at Southern as the interim coach. Um, during the 2023 season. Also was the interim coach at Grambling. So he coached in the Bayou Classic 2 years, two times, one on each side and won them both. In his first full year at Southern, he went 8-5. So that gives him an overall record of 10-5 with the two interim marks, and it gives him an 8-1 conference record. So he has obviously, when you win the division your first year, there's not a lot of places to go upward. Um, of course, there were some question marks with the team last season. The offense never really got the explosiveness that you would like to see. I think the defense played well. The special teams were kind of up and down. But this was a team who I think, obviously, because they won so many second halves, or at least they pulled ahead in certain second halves and won a few games later in the game. I think this was a team who was always prepared to win games and never really quit in games. And that's always, to me, a good foundation to build your team on. Now, you don't want to make it a habit of winning overtime games, but if your team is always ready for that kind of stuff, I think that is a mark on your coaches. Another team that's not necessarily flashy. They don't really attack the portal heavy. They do a lot of their work in the JUCO ranks. But coming off of a division championship, you can't really put this coach nowhere but the B tier. Where they go this season, that's the question. Can they continue to grow? There's only a couple of steps that you could take forward from here. There's a few steps you could take backwards from here, but there's only a few steps you could take forward from here. So I think this is a solid spot for him. And honestly, out of all three coaches in the B tier, I think they deserve to be here. I don't think any of those coaches at this point have a super strong case to be in the A tier, but they also don't really have a case to be in the C tier. So I think all three of these coaches who made the B tier are very solid and deserve to be there. And next up is Eddie Robinson, Coach E-Rob from Alabama State. He is the senior coach in the conference. And as crazy as that sounds, he's been here longer than everybody else, and he's only been here since 2022. So all that lets you know the level of newness of the coaches in this league, and that's what made it kind of easy to slot guys on this tier list. And it would have made it harder for me to do it 1 through 12, because, like I said, a coach that's only been here since 2022 is the coach with the longest tenure in the league. Um, so he has an overall record of 20-14 at Bama State, 14-10 in conference, went 6-5 his first year, 4-4 in the division, finished tied for third. The next season went 7-4, 5-3, tied for second. Following season, 7-5, 5-3, tied for second. As you can see, he's been in a position where he's been in the division with some great Jackson State teams and a great FAMU team. It's been tough to finish anywhere above a tie for second place. Um, Although last season they were predicted to win the conference, didn't came up short there. But a lot of people feel like this season may be make or break. You know what I mean? You've climbed, but you haven't really climbed as much as you may think. I mean, they went from 4-4 to 5-3, which they did 2 years in a row going 5-3. You went 6-6. I mean, you went 6-5, 7-4, then 7-5. So not really a lot of change in your records. But last season team was a very good team, and this season you do have some questions on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive, I think they'll be better on that side, but um, you haven't gotten over that hump to really win the division. You've had a chance to fight for it, but you had to beat some great teams to get there. Right now, I think they've been plagued on being the third team in a division that has that's had two really great programs in in these previous seasons. If he was in the West, they probably have a couple division championships by now. But you got to play the hand that you dealt, and he's another guy who I think is solidly in the B tier. Now, division championship is something you be looking at an A tier coach, because you would expect his record to improve this season as well. So um, got an opportunity to make some things happen, but it's not easy. And to get where he wants to go, he has to go through the final guy on this list, and that's Coach TC Taylor, who is on the A tier, and that's because he's had a even he's had a great run so far. First year went 7-4 and 5-3, basically a rebuild. When you look at all the guys that they lost from the previous season in 2022. Still finished top of second in the East. And then this season, they went 8-0 in conference, 12-2 overall, won the conference and won the Celebration Bowl. So, they come in with a lot of hype, a lot more riding. They have a strong case of going back to back. Like I said, he went 19-6 his first 2 years and 13-3 in conference. All both very solid marks, and has another chance to finish first in the East. So I think with him having the team to beat and not really taking any kind of step back, I think he's a pretty solid choice for the A tier. And so it was pretty simple. Like I said, I think most of these spots slotted out just right. There wasn't really a question on who to put in the A tier. There really wasn't a lot of question on who to put in the B tier. Um, there really wasn't a lot of question on who to put in the C tier, and the D tier was what it was. So I think it's honestly it's pretty easy to slot these guys like this because there are so many guys who have not yet established themselves in a lot of programs who are kind of in flux. So if you can win a little bit, you'll be solid in whatever tier that you're in, and you may make a jump, but to make a jump from B to C, I mean from C to B is going to take some winning, and to make a jump from B to A is definitely going to take a championship. So if anybody wants to make it there, they have to win, and they have to knock off the guy on the A tier. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Sewell signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.